Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and this video will be what I've watched in the month of November 2022. But first, I've got an unboxing for you. I've just received a package here from Michael Witchy, aka BogeyCATproductions. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. You may have seen Michael on one of my last live streams with Nige when we're just talking about this and that. I had a great time with him. He's got the most amazing Evil Dead stuff you will ever see in your life. And Michael has sent me something to do with Evil Dead here, and I'll show you what he's sent me. So I've opened this up. I haven't looked inside, and I just want to have a bit of a feel around to see if there's anything note-wise. Yes, there's a note in here. I'll read that. If it spills the beans, I'll sort of not tell it what it is. So yes, it says, hope you enjoy. Cheers, Mikey. He's got quite a lot of stuff here, which I'll not read out because obviously I'll show you what he's got. And brilliant. Michael's going to come on and do an Evil Dead special on the channel quite soon. So Michael sent some stuff here, and I'll read you out what he sent. The first thing is the Evil Dead, the musical. Yes, you heard that right. The next one is Elvis Dead. Can you imagine this? And then the next one is a one is called Back Key Zaya. I think that's what it's called. I'm terrible for these things because I can't see them. But it's basically the Bollywood Evil Dead. Yes, a Bollywood version of Evil Dead. So when me and Nigel were talking to Michael about his stuff, he did mention these things, and he said very kindly he's given me these copies to check out. I would imagine these aren't the easiest things to get a hold of. I don't think you can get these in the shops or anything, but these are just things that I can't even begin to understand what these would look like, but I'm very interested to see them. I love these spins that they've got on these movies. Wow. And also, Michael sent me, cover his address up, The War of the Worlds. This will be I think this is the BBC series. It's the German Blu-ray of the BBC 3-part War of the Worlds series. Now he's talking to me on a message about this and said, have you seen this? Because Mikey is a big fan of War of the Worlds. I think it's his favourite book and one of his favourite films of all time. And obviously I've just watched the remake. I've watched the original one. Love the pair of them. And this is one that he said, would you like to have a copy of this? And I was like, yeah, I'd definitely like to see it, because I haven't seen it. I know it's come out fairly recently. Or is it Rafe Spall's in here? I'm a big fan of Rafe Spall. I've got to say, he's one of my favourite actors actually of all time. Can you believe it? Wow, that's a real bonus for that. So I'm really buying into this War of the Worlds saga now. In fact, I can't wait to watch the original one. I think I'll ask Deborah to watch it with us. She watched the remake with us and she thoroughly enjoyed it. And also the Evil Dead, the musical, Elvis Dead, and the Bollywood Evil Dead. Wow. So thanks once again, Michael, and do stick around because you will see more of Mikey on this. I think it's the Section 2, Part 2, Video Nasty's live stream. You'll be on that, and we're doing an Evil Dead special, which you'll have to see to believe what he's got. I mean, the stuff that he showed us like after the stream, we just couldn't. My mouths were open for the whole time watching it. It was just fantastic, the stuff he's got. So big thanks to Michael, aka BogeyCATproductions. Cheers, mate. So this month I haven't been able to watch as many movies I want to watch, unfortunately. But what I have done is I finished off my box set of Star Trek. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank these and what I think of them, because I've had a chance to look at them and take in what I thought of them. I've got to say though, this box set is really good, but there is a large amount of DNR in it. I'll get into that when I'm talking about what the movies are like and what I thought of them. So, but I was really pleased to pick this up. And will I be going for these on 4K? The answer is yes, I will. I will start to pick them up in a sale. I'll get them separately, and I will get through these 6 movies. That, to be honest, I enjoyed the whole lot. But I'll talk about what I thought about them when I do a bit of a ranking. So out of the 6 original Star Trek movies, at number 6 is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Now, I remember, to be honest, I can't remember these movies. I can remember them vaguely, and I think I've seen them all on TV, but I can't really remember anything that's happened in these movies. It was like a fresh watch for me. But ironically, the movie I most remember was Star Trek 3. Now, strangely enough, I didn't really think this movie was that good, The main reason I thought was because Spock was kind of not in the movie for most of it. They were searching for him. There's a bit of a story there which I won't go too much into. There's no spoilers when I talk about these movies. So in my opinion, the storyline wasn't really enough to keep this movie going for me. So at 6th place, that is Star Trek 3. Next up is, at 5th place, is actually Star Trek 5. Now, it was alright. It wasn't bad at all. It just, I don't know, there's something about it. The other ones really kept my attention, but this one was, the storyline was alright. It was a bit like Star Trek 3. It was a bit, well, it was something or nothing. The other ones to me have got great stories, and this one is sort of middle of the road for me. So that's at 5th place is Star Trek 5. At 4th place is Star Trek 6. Now, this was a much better movie than the other two. And I thought that this is the last one they did. And I don't know, I just thought that there was a little something about this movie. I thought that was quite good. And it was a bit of a sort of like a murder mystery suspense movie, because somebody on the Starship Enterprise has set a war off. They're sort of making out that these have actually started the war, but they haven't. So I think the story is quite suspenseful in that way, and I think the story is better than the other two. So that's at 4. That's Star Trek 6. This is going to get confusing. And number 3 is Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. Now, this movie had a great storyline. I really enjoyed the whole performance in this, and I thought that it was one of the best stories out there. I love Khan as a character, and I think this movie had a lot more action than most of the Star Trek movies. So at number 3, that's Star Trek 2. And at number 2 is Star Trek 4. Now, when I first put this on, the fact that they're actually coming with some time traveling to come back to modern day times, I thought this would be pretty stupid, too stupid to enjoy. I find this movie to be more like a comedy, if I'm honest. No, I just thought it was great. The thing about it is this whole whale business in it, when they have to go back to Earth to rescue some whales to save the modern day, well, their world. I found that to be utterly stupid, but it worked. It worked for this film. So I found the movie to be very fun and entertaining. So at 2, that's Star Trek 4. So at number 1, obviously, is Star Trek the Motion Picture, the first movie they had out. Now, when I was watching some people's reviews of these movies, I always thought that this gets a bad review. And I remember watching it back in the day and being thoroughly bored by it. That's the only recollection I've got really of this movie. And I put it on expecting it to be average and not really sort of paying much attention to it, and thought I had to get through this to get the other ones. Well, far from it. I really enjoyed this movie. And I know that the 4K has got like an extra extended version on it, but I'm interested in seeing. So, I don't know, I just had such a good time with this movie. It is a bit long. It could have done with a few bits taken out. And it's by far, it's not action-packed at all. I just really like the movie. I just like what happened in it. And I found it to be a great, like, it was kind of like a serious sci-fi movie. The other ones have some daft stuff in it. But I really enjoy this, and I really do want to get these in 4K. So, getting back to the picture qualities. The picture qualities on here are a little bit strange, to say the least. Star Trek 1 on this box set is absolutely brilliant. Star Trek 2 on this set is absolutely brilliant. Look stunning. I mean, the colours in it are amazing. The clarity is amazing. And also it's got no grain whatsoever. But that's the kicker, isn't it? Because Star Trek 3, it's when it comes in the DNR. The faces in this movie is a big problem. To be honest, I mean, yes, they've got wrinkles, of course, because they're getting on, but the actual faces just look like plasticine. It's really weird because the movie itself looks spectacular apart from the faces, so it's a big letdown. And to be honest, when you're watching these, it kind of takes you out of the movie. You find yourself concentrating more on their faces than you do the actual movie. So Star Trek 3 is probably the worst for that, in my opinion. Then Star Trek 4, it's got that, the whole face one is the problem. It looks spectacular, but the faces are just the plasticine again. Star Trek 5 actually didn't look that bad. You can see it's got a bit of elements of DNR on it, but it didn't look half as bad as the other two, 3 and 4. In Star Trek 6, it's back to the DNR again, and unfortunately, because it does kind of spoil a movie for you, because I was having such a good time in this set. The fact that it had, actually, if this didn't have the DNR problems with it, I probably would have kept this set. So I had a great time watching these films, but I do feel like there's a 4K upgrade needed for them. So next I watched The War of the Worlds on 4K. And I'll leave a link down to my previous video I've done on this down below, so you can have a look at it, talk about it fully. But I've got to say, on a quick note, this looks absolutely spectacular. If you're on the fence about this, if you like these type of movies, these 50s sci-fi movies, you know, with like strange looking creatures in that, you might think, is it going to be alright? But I'm not kidding, it's one of the best ones I've seen on 4K. It's utterly unbelievable. This is the standard 4K release, even though it doesn't look like it from there. But yes, it's definitely the 4K. And you do get this movie on it, second movie on it, called When Worlds Collide. This is in Blu-ray. This is the 4K. It's absolutely sensational. And this one here is on Blu-ray. But this movie, again, is absolutely brilliant. So what happens in this movie is there's a planet that's going to actually crash into the Earth. They get in this spaceship to see if they can go and repopulate another planet without any sort of spacesuits. Wow, as if you could. And anyway, what a great movie it is. Both of them are. They're highly, highly recommended. I know there's a bigger version of this set out there if you wanted to pick that up. But I just opted for this one because I just saw it on the shelf and I thought, why not? And wow, I was so impressed by both movies. So that's The War of the Worlds and When Worlds Collide. And because I watched that one, and we are quite big fans of Tom Cruise these days, we watched War of the Worlds, the remake, directed by Steven Spielberg. Now this is quite a different movie to the original one, and it's great in its own way. Tom Cruise plays quite a strange character because his character is basically how everyone would act. He's not a like superhero. He's not like one of these people who've got to answer everything. He's quite, in fact, he's quite normal and he's quite scared of what's happening here, which is a great slant on it actually. And I really enjoyed it. And the girl in this, she's absolutely brilliant. And some of the effects in it are excellent. The whole, without going too much detail, this thing here that comes and searches through houses when it looks into things, it's got it's in this one, but it's got a brilliant version of it. That scene in this movie is one of the best scenes in the movie for me. So we watched it and we had a great time with it. The Dolby Atmos on here, I've got to say that we had to turn it down. In fact, we'll put the subtitles on at the end because the soundtrack was that thumping that we thought, watch it late at night. It's one of those ones where you might not want to watch it late at night because it might upset everybody. But it was just incredible. So the picture quality, I've got to say, it's okay. It's nothing to write home about. It's adequate. It's not one of these jaw-dropping ones that you get in the likes of this one. But the movie itself, we thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a different slant than the original one, but I did quite appreciate the way it went. So happy to see these both. I had this on the shelf for quite a long time, but I knew after seeing that, I had to see what Steven Spielberg made of it with Tom Cruise in the leading role. So I would say this is a very entertaining remake. That's The War of the Worlds 2005. Next I watched Mardi Gras Massacre. Now, I want to say a big thank you to Dan, who helped to get me this. He sent this over from America. It was so generous of him. I can't thank him enough. It was so amazing to receive this long before it's going to get released in the UK. It's coming out in January, hopefully. And I think it's sort of like starting to come out in the US as well, released on Severin. But this movie, you can see the Severin link there. This movie is something else. It's one of those ones where it's meant to be one of the worst video nasties going, and it's not a great film, don't get us wrong. It's highly entertaining though. If you like these so bad it's good movies, you will love this movie. It's got everything in it. Bad acting, bad storyline, bad dialogue, bad editing. The editing's awful. But there's something about it. I really like films like that, and I like a film they put stuff together and they think, probably due to the fact that they had no money, they thought, we'll just leave it in, probably to get the running time up. But this is well worth a watch, and if you can see it, which is starting to be available on Amazon actually for about £18, I urge anybody to get it or put in for it, because it's one of the worst video nasties you can get, but highly entertaining. I do want to watch this again, hopefully before Christmas. So once again, big thanks to Dan, and it's highly recommended by me, although it is one of the worst films you'll ever see, but in a fashion, it's one of the best films you'll ever see. So that's the Mardi Gras Massacre. So next up at the cinema, me and the Debs watched Black Adam. And is a decent movie. I quite enjoyed it. It's got some good special effects. It's not the best DC movie I've seen, but it's not as bad as everyone said it is. I think it's quite a good watch. So just know that this movie is the first time that these characters have been on the screen together, and you'll probably have a much better time than I did because I was quite confused for most of the movie. So I think I will give this a rewatch on streaming, and it was quite a fun movie in a way. So that's Black Adam. So next up, me and the devs watched The Guest. This is a spectacular edition from Second Sight. It's one of the best ones I've got, actually. Weighs a ton as well. It does have the soundtrack on here as well, which is got amazing soundtrack. And actually the colours on here, the colours are very pertinent to what you see in this movie. It's got this sort of colour palette in some parts of the movie. So this movie is about this guy who's a soldier who comes back to stop with the family of a soldier that he's been with, but he's died. So I'm not talking about this movie too much, but I want everybody just to go in a bit blind with it. But you will have such a great experience with it. And it looks great on 4K as well. So that's highly recommended. That's The Guest. So the last movie I watched is also my pick of the month. It is Pearl. What a movie this is. I mean, I enjoyed X. I thought X was absolutely brilliant. But this one, I would say I preferred X slightly. But this one itself, I mean, Mia Goth, who's also in X, although she plays a different part in it. Even though this was released after X, it is the prequel to X. And I urge you to see it in that way. I would say X first before you see this movie. But this movie, X was great. And this movie is equally as great. Obviously, Mia Goth is the star of the show. And her performance in here is absolutely spellbinding. Especially the ending. Now, I would say the ending 20 minutes is like just some of the best acting I've seen. Especially from a young person. I'm just thinking, wow, she can really do this. It's been directed again by Ty West. And I think Mia Goth actually wrote the story as well. So she's a bit of a talent, I can tell you that much. But the story itself, it kind of takes place, obviously with X. There's a certain element to X or a certain character, and she plays that character when she's younger, and it tells you sort of the backstory about her and the house that's featured in X. And I don't know, I just thought this movie. I thought this movie would be good because of the way that X was and the way it looked. Now this movie, X looked a bit like Texas Chainsaw Massacre to look at, but it doesn't really play out like that. This movie doesn't look like that, but it's got that kind of, I don't know, it's got a really weird sort of, not a weird look to it, but it's got a great feel to it. So in the strength of that, I can't wait for Maxine to come out, which is the third part of this trilogy. Now, is this movie a horror film? Kinda is. It's got some really, really brutal scenes in it, but not half as bad as X was the more gory for me. This was more psychological, but is it? It's more of a sort of story just about this girl and what happens in the way she wants to be a star. And it's one of the things that are like conspiring against it to not do that. And this franchise is shaping up to be one of the best horror franchises of all time for me. Wow. Absolutely highly recommended, and you will have a blast with this movie. It is gory, but I think it needs to be. So, thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.